Prepare yourselves for a moment that shattered the polished facade of international diplomacy, a revelation so audacious it reverberated across continents and redefined the very meaning of truth in global communication. This is not just a story, it's a testament to courage, a live exposé that shook the foundations of power. If you're ready to dive into the heart of a diplomatic earthquake, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below, because what you're about to read is truly unforgettable. The air inside the Grand Hall of the United Nations General Assembly in New York hummed with the weight of global expectation. Representatives from 193 nations, a mosaic of cultures and ideologies, sat poised, anticipating the address of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. His voice, a beacon for Burkina Faso, was about to join the chorus of world leaders, his message destined to be translated simultaneously into English, Arabic, Chinese, Russian, and Spanish through the UN's intricate official translation system. No one, not a single delegate among the thousands present, nor the millions watching live broadcasts across the globe, could have predicted that the next 18 minutes would unfold into one of the most shocking and defining moments in the UN's storied history. As Traoré began to speak in his native French, his words flowed with the measured cadence of a leader advocating for his nation and his continent. He spoke of peaceful cooperation, of fostering mutual understanding among nations, and of the collective aspiration for a harmonious future for African countries. Yet, in a discreet, soundproof booth high above the assembly floor, French-English interpreter Elena Michaels, a veteran with a seemingly unblemished 15-year record, was engaged in a calculated act of linguistic sabotage. Her fingers danced across the console, her voice calm and professional, subtly altering Traoré's carefully chosen phrases. Where he articulated, "We warned peaceful cooperation," her voice, broadcast to the English-speaking world, chillingly stated, "We are launching a struggle against Western countries." His calls for dialogue became veiled threats, and his vision of unity was twisted into confrontation. This insidious manipulation continued, undetected, for a full 12 agonizing minutes, weaving a tapestry of distorted intent that painted Traoré as an aggressor, not a peacemaker. Then, the most dramatic moment in UN history began to unfold. Captain Traoré, his expression unreadable, had been listening intently to the English translation through a secret earpiece, a contingency recommended by his astute language expert, Dr. Amina Kone. The discrepancy, at first a subtle discord, grew into a jarring cacophony of misrepresentation. Mid-sentence, his powerful voice abruptly ceased. A collective gasp rippled through the 3,000 people in the hall, their breaths held captive by the sudden profound silence. Traoré slowly lifted his gaze, his eyes sweeping across the translation booths, a silent accusation in their depth. Then, into the microphone, his voice resonating with a newfound gravity, he declared, "One moment." The tension was palpable. "There's a problem with the English translation. I say peace, the interpreter translates war." Those words, stark and unambiguous, were instantly broadcast to the entire world through the hall's microphones. Millions of people watching CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera's live broadcasts were witnessing in real time an unprecedented and deeply unsettling moment in diplomatic history. The expression on UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres' face, captured by every camera, was one of profound shock and a dawning realization of the immense seriousness of the situation. The world watched, captivated, as the truth began its slow, undeniable ascent. The silence that followed Captain Traoré's earth-shattering declaration was abruptly shattered by a wave of frantic activity. High in the translation booths, a palpable panic had erupted. Elena Michaels, her face contorted in a mask of terror, lunged for her microphone, desperate to cut the connection, to silence the damning evidence of her treachery. But it was too late. Her voice, moments ago a tool of deception, was now a conduit for her undoing. Traoré, unwavering at the podium, his gaze fixed on the now flustered interpreter, announced that he would not leave. His demand was clear, his voice ringing with unyielding authority. The incident must be clarified at this very moment, before the eyes of the world. Such a crisis, a direct challenge to the UN's operational integrity, had never been experienced in the organization's 78-year history. Honorable delegates, Traoré's voice boomed, cutting through the rising murmurs. I am currently speaking in French. Please, delegates who speak French, check the English translation. You will see dramatic differences between the translation and my original words. The hall, moments ago frozen in stunned silence, erupted into a cacophony of bewildered chatter. Delegates who understood French immediately began switching their headphones, their fingers fumbling with the language settings, a collective realization dawning upon them. The Canadian Foreign Minister, a seasoned diplomat, was the first senior official to confirm the unthinkable. He opened his microphone, his voice laced with incredulity. Mr. President, there are serious discrepancies between what the President of Burkina Faso said and the English translation. This statement caused an even greater commotion, a ripple effect of shock spreading through the assembly. The Swiss delegate swiftly followed, his voice equally grave. The English translation is not compatible with the original French text. This is a serious protocol violation. The astonishment etched on U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's face, captured by every camera, became one of the most striking images of the unfolding scandal. Meanwhile, a desperate Elena Michaels made a move to escape her booth, but her path was abruptly blocked. Swiftly and decisively, UN security officers, acting on Traoré's earlier discreet request, had secured all translation booths. No one will leave the translation booths, the UN security chief declared, his voice firm and unyielding. This incident needs to be investigated. From his commanding position at the podium, Traoré pointed directly at booth number 3. The French-English interpreter in booth number 3 is deliberately manipulating the translation. I say peace, she translates war. I say cooperation, she translates threat. This is sabotage. The hall plunged into complete chaos. Delegates rose from their seats, their faces a mixture of outrage and disbelief. UN personnel huddled in rapid, hushed discussions, their usual composure shattered. The translation booth microphones had been summarily turned off, but it was too late. World media, sensing the seismic shift, began broadcasting breaking news alerts. A BBC correspondent live on air commented with a tone of utter astonishment. Such a crisis has never been experienced in UN history. A country leader exposed translation sabotage live on air. CNN, not to be outdone, continued its broadcast with the urgent headline, Diplomatic Crisis Live. Antonio Guterres, his face grim, finally opened his microphone. Honorable delegates, this is a serious situation. We are taking a 30-minute break from the session. An investigation will be launched immediately regarding this matter. However, Traoré, resolute and unyielding, refused to budge from the podium. I will stay here, his voice unwavering. This investigation will be conducted transparently before everyone's eyes. This demand flew in the face of established UN protocol, but in the face of Traoré's unwavering determination, Guterres had no choice but to back down. With the approval of the General Assembly, the investigation will be conducted openly, he conceded, the weight of the moment heavy in his voice. The world watched, breathless, as a new era of accountability began to dawn. As the initial shock began to subside, the investigation into Elena Michaels' background commenced, and the preliminary findings were nothing short of shocking. Michaels, a UN interpreter for 15 years, had never faced such an accusation before. Yet a chilling pattern began to emerge. Suspicions arose that she had made similar manipulations in the past 6 months, particularly during speeches delivered by African leaders. The implications were staggering, suggesting a far more sinister plot than a singular act of defiance. Sarah Mitchell, the director of the UN Internal Audit Division, stepped forward to explain the escalating situation. Her voice, though measured, carried the weight of a grave discovery. "We are urgently reviewing Michael's translations from the past 6 months," she announced. Initial findings indicate systematic manipulation. This statement deepened the crisis, transforming a rogue interpreter incident into a systemic failure. From his unwavering position at the podium, Traoré, seizing the moment, pressed the issue further. "This is not limited to my speech alone," he asserted, his voice cutting through the tension. "How many African leaders' words have been distorted? How many important decisions were made due to wrong translations?" These piercing questions, broadcast to every corner of the globe, deeply shook the UN's credibility, exposing a vulnerability no one had dared to imagine. The floodgates opened. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa took the microphone, his expression grim. "I remember that I also experienced translation problems in my speeches in the past 6 months. This matter should be seriously investigated." Delegates from Kenya, Ghana, and Senegal quickly followed suit, expressing similar, unsettling suspicions. The collective testimony painted a damning picture of widespread, targeted disinformation. Following these explosive developments, the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, made an extraordinary, unprecedented decision. All African leaders' speech translations from the past 6 months will be re-examined, he declared, his voice firm. This process will be conducted transparently. Elena Michaels, now the epicenter of a global media storm, was removed from the translation booth under intense scrutiny. Journalists swarmed, desperate to uncover who she was working for. Who was truly behind these manipulations? Initial investigations quickly revealed that Michaels had recent financial connections with various lobby groups, hinting at a vast, shadowy network. Traoré, ever the astute strategist, also evaluated the incident's media dimension. World public opinion misunderstood African leaders due to wrong translations, he stated, his words resonating with profound truth. This is not just a translation error, but systematic disinformation. This powerful statement reverberated greatly in international media. French President Emmanuel Macron, in a statement from Paris, declared, "This incident is unacceptable. As France, we are closely following the matter." The British Prime Minister echoed similar concerns. However, the harshest reaction came from the United States. The White House spokesperson issued a blunt statement. "The UN's credibility has been damaged. We expect a comprehensive investigation into this matter." On the second day of the incident, Elena Michaels' statement was taken. Michaels admitted to the manipulations, but shockingly claimed she had received instructions. "I was told to translate African leaders' words in a more diplomatic way," she confessed, her words sending the crisis spiraling into a new dimension. When pressed to explain who gave her these instructions, Michaels replied vaguely, "There was pressure from various diplomatic circles. I don't want to give names." This evasive explanation only fueled rampant conspiracy theories, suggesting powerful, unseen hands at play. Following these developments, Traoré held a second press conference, his resolve unbroken. This is not just an interpreter issue, it's part of systematic disinformation. Africa's voice is being deliberately distorted on international platforms. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, weighed in, stating that translation manipulation is a violation of freedom of expression. This matter should also be evaluated from an international law perspective. On the third day, statements began to be taken from other interpreters. Russian interpreter Ivan Petrov bravely stated, "Recently, there have been unusual pressures in the translation department. Some people wanted certain country leaders' words to be corrected." Chinese interpreter Li Wei gave similar statements. "Especially for developing country leaders' speeches, we were advised to make softer translations." These testimonies confirmed the incident's true dimensions. Not only Elena Michaels, but the entire translation system was implicated in systematic manipulation. Traoré, acting decisively, filed an official complaint with the UN. As Burkina Faso, we demand comprehensive reform from the UN on this matter. The translation system must be completely reorganized. The African Union, recognizing the gravity of the situation, swiftly intervened. African Union Commission Chairman Moussa Faki stated that this incident is an example of systematic discrimination against the African continent. Necessary legal steps will be taken. The stage was set for a battle that would redefine international diplomacy. The fourth day of the incident saw an extraordinary session convened at the UN General Assembly, a direct consequence of Traoré's unwavering stance. The air crackled with anticipation as the reform of the translation system became the singular, pressing agenda. Traoré, now a global symbol of transparency, presented his proposals with clarity and conviction. Each country should be able to bring its own interpreter. The translation system must be transparent, and, crucially, all translations should be recorded. These proposals, born from the crucible of crisis, resonated deeply with many nations, especially developing countries, who announced they had experienced similar insidious problems. The Brazilian delegate spoke passionately. As Latin American countries, we have also experienced problems in Spanish-English translations. The Indian delegate echoed similar complaints, solidifying the grim realization that the problem was not confined to Africa. The UN's translation system was suffering a general credibility crisis. On the fifth day, the results of the security report investigating Elena Michaels' connections were announced, sending fresh shockwaves through the diplomatic world. It was revealed that Michaels had undeniable financial connections with various lobby companies, confirming the shadowy network Traoré had hinted at. The New York prosecutor's office swiftly took up the matter, issuing a stern statement. Ethical violations by UN personnel are matters to be taken seriously. Michaels was detained on the sixth day, facing charges that included abuse of duty and ethical violations. Traoré, in a statement about the detention, declared, "Justice has been served, but this is just the beginning. The system must change fundamentally." The UN reform process accelerated with unprecedented speed. Secretary-General Guterres, now fully committed, announced the establishment of the Translation Reform Commission, ensuring representatives from every continent would be included. Traoré, a pivotal figure in this transformation, accepted commission membership, stating, "We will work to ensure Africa's voice is heard correctly." In the second week of the incident, the topic of translation transparency became a dominant discourse in media outlets worldwide. Translation and media manipulations were intensely questioned, prompting social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to announce new policies on algorithm transparency. Google Translate also announced a review of its translation algorithms, and technology companies began developing new standards for translation accuracy. Blockchain technology was even proposed for translation security, with the idea of recording translations in an immutable way, gaining strong support from technology experts. The UN's own technological infrastructure was rigorously reviewed, leading to the installation of new security cameras in translation booths and the recording of all interpreter communications. In the third week, the translation reform was put to a vote at the UN General Assembly. The outcome was a resounding victory for transparency. 156 countries voted in favor, with only 15 against and 22 abstentions.
The comprehensive reform package included simultaneous recording of both original language and translation versions of each speech, interpreters signing independence declarations, continuous auditing of translation quality, and a rapid response system for complaints. Traoré, in his statement after the vote, proclaimed, "This is the democratization not only of the UN, but of all international diplomacy." During the one-month process following the incident, the lobby companies that Alina Michaels worked for were also put under intense investigation. It was revealed that these companies had been conducting systematic disinformation campaigns to influence various countries' policies. The European Parliament took up the matter, with its president stating, "This incident is an alarm bell for protecting our democratic institutions." The NATO Secretary General commented, "Disinformation is the greatest security threat of the 21st century." In the second month, the court process, dubbed the Michaels case, began in the New York Federal Court, quickly becoming a precedent in international law. Traoré was heard as a witness, reiterating, "This was not just a translation error, it was deliberate manipulation." This situation prevented small countries from making their voices heard on international platforms. Michael's lawyers argued diplomatic courtesy, but technical analysis, particularly a report by voice analysis expert Dr. Robert Chen, showed a 78% semantic difference between Michael's translations and the original speeches, a rate too high for accidental errors. The prosecutor declared it evidence of professional sabotage. The jury found Michaels guilty, and she was sentenced to 18-month suspension from duty and a $50,000 fine. Traoré, after the decision, affirmed, "Justice has been served. This decision is the victory of transparency in international diplomacy." In the sixth month, the UN's new translation system was gradually implemented, founded on principles of quality control, verification, and transparency. The first test was Traoré's new UN speech. This time, all translations were performed perfectly, earning a standing ovation from the hall. "The scandal that happened here 6 months ago has made the UN stronger today," Traoré declared. "Now, no country's voice can be distorted." On the first anniversary, UN translation reforms were largely complete, making the UN a more reliable platform. Academic circles hailed it as the most important diplomatic reform of the 21st century, with the Traoré case becoming a course at Harvard Kennedy School. Alina Michaels, after serving her sentence, found no work permits at any international organization, and the lobby companies faced heavy penalties. In the second month, Traoré delivered a special UN speech. "The crisis we experienced here 2 years ago taught us this: democracy is a precious heritage that requires constant protection." This speech was met with a 15-minute standing ovation, a testament to Traoré's courage. Today, the UN translation system is a world standard, inspiring similar reforms globally. Traoré's historic moment became a turning point for transparency and honesty in international diplomacy, proving that an 18-minute speech could move diplomacy forward by 18 years. His brave stance not only triggered a translation scandal, but also an international system reform, ensuring more transparent and fair diplomacy worldwide. The behind-the-scenes story of this incident was also noteworthy. Traoré's preparations before his speech determined the course of the event. The Burkina Faso delegation had developed a coordinated strategy with other African countries the day before the UN speech, aimed at making African countries' voices heard more strongly at the UN. The advisors accompanying Traoré also played a critical role, particularly language expert Dr. Aminata Koné, who had recommended that Traoré also listen to the English translation while speaking in French. This recommendation was a key factor in uncovering the scandal. Immediately after the incident, the world media's reaction came very quickly. The hashtag UN translation scandal became a trending topic within minutes on social media. Millions of shares were made on Twitter. The video of the incident moment garnered 50 million views on YouTube within 24 hours. Especially strong was the reaction of the African diaspora, with communities in London, Paris, and New York organizing protest demonstrations in front of the UN building, echoing the slogan, "You cannot distort Africa's voice." The social reaction also mobilized politicians, leading to emergency sessions in the French and British parliaments, emphasizing the threat translation manipulation posed to democracy. The incident also had a great impact in the academic world, with urgent symposiums on translation ethics and international diplomacy organized at Columbia University, and panels on media manipulation and democracy held at Harvard. Elena Michaels' personal story also attracted media attention. The Canadian Michaels had studied translation and interpretation at McGill University, and in her 20-year career, she had never been involved in such a scandal. Her colleagues had difficulty understanding her behavior. Michaels' family was also greatly affected, with her husband and 2 children enduring difficult days under intense media attention, forcing them to temporarily leave their home in Montreal. The technological dimension of the incident also created important developments. Tech giants like Microsoft, Google, and Apple announced new security measures regarding translation algorithms. Technologies to prevent manipulation in AI-supported translation systems began to be developed. Blockchain technology was also proposed for translation security, with the idea of recording translations in an immutable way, gaining strong support from technology experts. The UN's own technological infrastructure was also reviewed, leading to the installation of new security cameras in translation booths and the recording of all communications of interpreters. The psychological impact of the incident also lasted a long time. When Traoré described that day, he said, "At that moment, I felt I was representing not just my own country, but all of Africa." This sense of responsibility was influential in his brave decision. Other African leaders were also inspired by Traoré's courage, taking more active roles in subsequent UN meetings and becoming more careful about translation. The incident also set a precedent from an international law perspective, as translation manipulation began to be accepted as a new legal category, and the International Court of Justice prepared new guidelines on this matter. As a result, Traoré's historic